One of the problems of me sitting around giving advice to you is that I've been doing this self-employed teaching English in Japan for 20 bloody years, and I've forgotten what it's like, how it feels to be working for a company, either teaching or doing anything else. The last time I worked for a company was, as I say, 20 years ago. And it wasn't teaching, it was working in newspapers, which is a world that has all but disappeared, I think. So it's hard to put myself in perhaps your shoes if you're in the employed world. But as I get older, I do find myself watching, or at least the algorithm thinks I should be watching, retirement videos and early retirement videos and how to retire and the difficulties of retirement and all this sort of stuff. And what I find not exactly amusing but interesting is that these people retiring, and the ones that have difficulty retiring, a lot of it is stuff that I've already gone through as a self-employed teacher 20 years ago. Let me give you an example. People complain, oh, I don't know if I'll have any friends when I retire, because all of the friends I've got at work, I won't have those friends. It's kind of the same when you set up your own business. You lose the camaraderie of the people around you, and much like people who retire, they realise the people they thought were their good friends just are people sitting next to them. They're not really friends. Once the gel of the shared company effort has gone, they're no longer your friends. So I kind of went through that 20 years ago when I quit my newspaper job in England and we moved to Japan specifically to start a school. There were a lot of unknowns, but one of the things I was pretty sure of, or I was quite confident about, was, oh well, I still have these friends back in England and they'll be cheering for my success. Bollocks, did I? The people that I'm still in touch with are the people that I was in touch with before then, are my old school friends and university friend pals. There are a handful of people that I would call my friends from work. And apart from the odd email that I sent, over in 1 year after leaving the company, it was quite clear they weren't that interested and didn't have anything to say to me. And it was kind of a sort of a rude awakening. Oh, people don't really care. Well, maybe they don't like me, but people are no longer, especially back in England, they don't have a particular interest in Japan. Suddenly the gel that kept us together was gone. So that might happen to you if you start your own company in Japan. You could well lose the camaraderie of the people around you, but I would call those people fake friends anyway, or just associates. And as you get older, who needs them? You don't have as much time to waste. So that's kind of a key thing that I wanted to mention. I noticed with these retirement videos. So I'm just trying to get my head back into how it felt being an employee. One of the big differences I've realised is that employees are, by the nature, have to spend a lot of time making sure the boss is happy. And you don't really think of that when you're working for a company. You think you're doing the job, but actually you're not just doing the job. Your job is to keep the boss happy. And if you happen to do a good job, that's great. But number one, keep the boss happy. And so you're constantly running things by the boss or the higher ups or your manager or whoever. Is it okay if I do this? Is it okay if I do that? What if this? What if that? And I realise I'm not comfortable doing that. And perhaps I never was, but I knew how to play that game. Now I've completely forgotten, and I don't know how to do that. And I'm not interested in it, and that doesn't get me going. And I don't waste any time thinking about office politics. There is no office politics. Well, I have an employee, part-time employee, who comes in for 2 lessons a day. I suppose there's some politics there, but not really. So, yeah, life is better as a self-employed person from that point of view. But it means you have to do a good job, and it's based on doing a good job, based on what your customers, what your students, how they react, how they feel that you're doing, is 900 times more important than what your employee or your boss or whatever thinks, if you have a boss. I guess my boss is my wife, but it was always thus. So anyway, that is to say, yeah, the other point I wanted to make was that, talking about retirement and stuff, you control how much you work. Now, of course, it depends on the market, it depends on how busy you are, how many students you've got, and all that sort of stuff. But essentially, you can, within those restrictions, you can decide how much you work. So you can decide that you work 6 days a week or 5 days a week. And if you can afford it, you can take your foot off the pedal, step back a little, do other things. That's what I'm excited about doing. Because there's no boss, there's no one to clear it with. You kind of have to be your own boss. You can't just say, oh well, I only want to work 1 day a week. Well, okay, are you going to make enough money doing that? You know, and you don't want to piss off all of your current students. You know, you have to consider these things. So you have to become the boss that you hated, maybe. But you know, there's more leeway for self-determination, if that's the right way of looking at it. I wouldn't have it any other way now, but it's hard to remember what it was like to be an employee, so I apologise if I'm galloping ahead or stating the bleeding obvious. I don't know. Perhaps you know better than I. But once you get used to doing your own thing, there's no going back. And in many ways, it's like taking early retirement. Certainly the philosophy of it, you know, doing your own thing. And actually, when you do actually retire, when you actually take your foot off the pedal, I think it's not going to be a quantitative change, just a qualitative change, you know, just a change in amount rather than quality, if that makes sense. Anyway, okay, I hope you have a good one. Have a nice weekend, and what? Keep it real. Keep it real. I don't know. Have a good one. Have a good one. See ya.